Hello and welcome from Granny to all. Granny wishes your health, wealth, and great fortunes. For today's wisdom, Granny shares the story of the cooking disaster. Saba had always been a bit clueless in the kitchen. The closest she'd ever come to cooking was microwaving instant noodles and occasionally burning toast. So when her friends suggested they sign up for a cooking class, Saba was a mix of excitement and sheer terror. "I mean, how hard can it be, right?" Saba said, trying to convince herself as she looked at the ingredients list for the class. "A few basic dishes, I can do this." Little did she know, this basic class would turn into the funniest experience of her life. The cooking class was being held at a trendy little kitchen studio downtown. Saba was already late, so when she rushed in, she tripped over the doorframe and almost knocked over a bowl of flour. "Great start," she muttered to herself as she scrambled to grab an apron. The instructor, Chef Marco, was a serious-looking guy with a thick Italian accent and a love for dramatic gestures. "Welcome to the world of cooking, my friends. Today we shall make pasta from scratch," he announced, his arms outstretched as if he were about to perform a magic trick. Saba, wide-eyed, glanced around. Everyone else seemed to be in control, rolling dough, cracking eggs, and even making it look effortless. Meanwhile, she was still trying to figure out how to flour her work surface without making it look like a snowstorm. Chef Marco started with a demonstration, tossing flour into the air with wild flair, and Saba couldn't help but laugh. But when it was time for her to try, it wasn't as graceful. The flour flew everywhere, onto her face, her apron, and even a poor bystander's hair. She looked like a snowman in the middle of a blizzard. "Oh no," Saba laughed, wiping her eyes. "I think I'm more of a disaster chef than a cook." The others were polite enough to chuckle, but Chef Marco raised an eyebrow. "Not a disaster, my dear. Just a learning experience." Saba then moved on to cracking the eggs. Easy, right? Wrong. She ended up with half the shell in her bowl and the other half on the counter. "Maybe I should just stick to boiling water," she muttered. Next came the pasta dough. Chef Marco demonstrated how to knead it perfectly, but Saba was convinced her dough was rebelling. She kneaded it with all her might, but it refused to take the right shape, turning into a lumpy mess. "Is this normal?" she asked, holding up a sad, floppy ball of dough. Chef Marco walked over, took one look at her dough, and then gently patted her hand. "Ah, yes. This is what I call creative pasta. It's unique." By the time they got to the sauce, Saba had somehow added way too much garlic, creating a flavor that could knock out a dragon. As she stirred the sauce, she realized that not only was the kitchen a disaster, but she also smelled like an Italian restaurant gone rogue. "Just a tiny bit too much garlic, huh?" Her friend grinned, eyeing Saba's sauce pot from across the room. Saba shrugged, her face red from both embarrassment and garlic overload. "I'm going for the bold, adventurous approach," she said, hoping her confidence would make up for her total lack of cooking skills. Despite the chaos, Chef Marco praised everyone for their efforts. Cooking is about experimenting, making mistakes, and learning from them. No one becomes a master chef overnight. Saba stood proudly in front of her masterpiece, a clumpy pile of pasta that looked more like a science project than a dinner. But when she finally took a bite, to her surprise, it wasn't half bad. Sure, it was a little overcooked and definitely garlic-heavy, but she was proud. "Maybe, just maybe," Saba said with a wink, "I'm not completely hopeless in the kitchen." Her friends laughed as they dug into their own dishes, none of which looked quite like Chef Marco's demonstration, but all of them tasted just a little bit like victory. "Next time," Saba said, "I think I'll stick to making sandwiches." The end. What have you learnt from this story, dear viewer? Tell us your suggestion in the comment section below. Like and subscribe for more videos, and feel free to ask Granny anything. Regards, Granny.